Useless. 7 years and your womb is still empty. You are a curse on this family. Mama Obi's voice echoed through the compound as Adaeze scrubbed the floor, her tears mixing with the soapy water. Look at her, Nima sneered from the doorway, her pregnant belly prominent. The barren one. My children ask me why Aunt Adaeze has no babies. What should I tell them? That she's cursed? The women's cruel laughter rang out as Adaeze kept her head down, saying nothing. That night, even her husband turned against her. Maybe my mother is right, Obi said coldly. Maybe you are cursed? Neoma gives me strong sons. What do you give me? Shame. Adaeze ran into the darkness, her sobs breaking the silence of the night. She had endured 7 years of this torture. 7 years of being called barren, empty, worthless. By the sacred river, she collapsed to her knees and wept until she had no tears left. But that night, something happened. Something that would change everything. If you've ever been called barren, or if you know someone struggling with the pain of waiting for a child, I want you to know you're not alone. This story is for you. Hit that subscribe button if you believe that your time will come and that those who mock you now will witness your blessing. Now let's go back to where Adaeze's life began. Adaeze woke before the first rooster crowed. She always did. The darkness was her only friend. The one time of day when no one could see her tears, no one could mock her empty womb, no one could remind her that she was the family's greatest shame. She tied her wrapper tightly and stepped out into the cold morning air. The compound was silent except for the soft breathing of sleeping children, Neoma's children, 3 healthy boys who would carry on the family name, children Adaeze could never give. She knelt by the fire pit and began preparing the morning meal. Her hands moved mechanically, grinding paper, chopping vegetables, stirring the pot. She had perfected the art of being invisible, of making herself so useful that maybe, just maybe, they would forget she was barren. But they never forgot. You're burning the yam. Adaeze jumped. Mama Obi stood in the doorway of the main house, her face twisted in disgust. I'm sorry, Mama. I'll fix it. Fix it? Mama Obi laughed bitterly. You can't fix anything. 7 years, Adaeze, 7 years. My son married you when you were young and fertile. And what have you given him? Nothing. Not even one child. Not even a daughter. Adaeze's throat tightened. I'm trying, Mama. I pray every day. Prayer? Mama Obi spat on the ground. The gods don't answer the prayers of cursed women. You know what I think? I think you did something terrible in your past life. Maybe you killed children. Maybe that's why your womb is a graveyard. The words hit like stones. Adaeze kept her head down, staring. The pot faster, trying to drown out the voice that haunted her every waking moment. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Adaeze raised her eyes. Mama Obi's face was inches from hers, her breath hot with anger. My son deserves better. Neema has given him 3 strong sons. 3. And you? You've given him shame. Do you know what the village says about our family? They laugh at us. They say Obi was foolish to keep a barren woman as his first wife. I'm still his wife, Adaeze whispered. Wife? Mama Obi laughed cruelly. You're a placeholder, a mistake, and soon you won't even be that. The sun rose, and with it came the sounds of the compound waking up. Children's laughter, women's chatter, the daily reminder that life was happening all around Adaeze, but never for her. Neoma emerged from Obi's hut, stretching lazily. Her belly was swollen with her 4th child, another blessing that would deepen Adaeze's shame. Good morning, sister, Neoma said sweetly, though her eyes were cold. Did you sleep well? Oh, wait. You sleep alone now, don't you? Obi hasn't visited your hut in how long? 3 months? 4? Adaeze didn't answer. She focused on serving breakfast. I'm talking to you, Adaeze. Neoma's voice sharpened. It's rude not to answer your co-wife. I slept well, thank you. Neoma circled her like a predator. You know what I don't understand? How you can wake up every day and pretend everything is fine, pretend that you're not the laughingstock of this family, Pretend that your husband doesn't wish he never married you. The other women in the compound had gathered now, drawn by the scent of morning drama like vultures to a carcass. Leave her alone, Neoma, one of the older women said half-heartedly. Leave her alone, Neoma laughed. Why? Because the truth hurts? She needs to hear it. Maybe if someone had been honest with her years ago, she would have left and saved us all this embarrassment. Adaeze's hands trembled as she poured soup into calabashes. Just get through this moment. Just survive until tonight. My son asked me a question yesterday. Enima continued, her voice carrying across the compound. He said, Mama, why doesn't Aunt Adaeze have any babies? And you know what I told him? Silence. Everyone waited. I told him that some women are blessed by the gods and some women are cursed. I told him that Aunt Adaeze is one of the cursed ones, and that's why he should always pray to never be like her. The women gasped. Even they knew Nima had crossed the line. But Adaeze said nothing. She served the food, her face blank, her heart breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. That's enough, Nayoma, Mama Obi said, though there was amusement in her voice. Let the girl work. She's good for that at least. Later that morning, Adaeze went to the market to buy supplies for the evening meal. She kept her head down, walking quickly, trying to avoid eye contact, but the village had eyes everywhere. There goes Obi's Barren wife, a woman whispered loudly. 7 years and nothing, another replied. I heard Mama Obi is bringing a third wife soon, a young one from the next village. Smart woman, why waste time on a fruitless tree? Adaeze's steps quickened. The market seemed to stretch endlessly before her, each stall a gauntlet of whispers and stares. At the yam seller's stand, she reached for the largest tuber. Not that one, the seller said sharply, snatching it away. That's for fertile women. Bad luck for you to touch it. Adaeze's hand froze. Please, I just need... Take this. The woman shoved smaller bruised yams toward her. These are more appropriate for someone like you. Someone like you. Cursed, barren, less than human. Adaeze paid quickly and hurried. Away the weight of the yams, nothing compared to the weight of shame crushing her chest. On her way out of the market, she passed a group of young mothers with babies strapped to their backs. They were laughing, sharing stories, their faces glowing with the joy of motherhood. One of them saw Adaeze and fell silent. The others turned to look. Adaeze kept walking, but she heard their whispers follow her like shadows. Poor thing. Cursed. I'd rather die than live like that. When Adaeze returned to the compound, she found Mama Obi and Neoma sitting with a young woman she'd never seen before. The girl couldn't have been more than 17, beautiful, shy, and clearly uncomfortable. Adaeze, Mama Obi called out cheerfully. Come meet Chidera. She's going to be Obi's third wife. The words hit like a physical blow. The wedding is in 2 weeks, Mama Obi continued. And you, my dear Adaeze, we prepare the bridal hut and cook the wedding feast. After all, you're the first wife. It's your duty. Neoma smirked. Don't look so sad, Adaeze. At least you'll still be useful for something. Chidera looked at Adaeze with pity. The kind of pity that was somehow worse than mockery. Welcome, Adaeze managed to whisper, though the word tasted like poison. That night, as Adaeze lay alone in her small hut, she stared at the ceiling and wondered how much more she could endure. The answer came swiftly. Not much longer. She could hear Obi's laughter coming from Neoma's hut. She could hear the other wives gossiping about the new bride. She could hear the children playing, calling for their mothers. But no one called for her. No one ever called for her. Adaeze turned her face to the wall and wept silently, her body shaking with sobs she couldn't voice. Tomorrow she would have to wake up and do it all over again. Tomorrow she would have to pretend she wasn't dying inside. But tonight she let herself break. The festival of fertility arrived like a knife to Adaze's heart. Once a year, the village celebrated the blessing of motherhood. New mothers were honored, pregnant women were blessed by the elders, and children danced through the streets with flowers in their hair. It was Adaze's least favorite day of the year. Adaeze, Mama Obi shouted from across the compound. Come here. Adaeze wiped her hands on her wrapper and hurried over. You serve the food today at the festival, Mama Obi announced. All the mothers will be gathered in the village square. You'll make sure their calabashes are never empty. But Mama, You what? Mama Obi's eyes narrowed dangerously. You think you're too good to serve? You think you deserve to sit with the blessed women? No, Mama, I'll serve. Good. And wear something decent. I don't want people thinking we treat you poorly. The irony wasn't lost on Adaeze. The village square was decorated with fresh flowers and colorful cloth. Women sat in circles, their babies on their laps, their bellies round with new life. The air was thick with laughter and celebration. Adaeze moved between the groups with a large pot of soup, filling calabashes and avoiding eye contact. More soup here, a woman called out. Adaeze approached quickly, but as she poured, the woman pulled her calabash back suddenly. Hot soup splashed across Adaeze's hand. Oh! The woman gasped dramatically. How clumsy! You should be more careful, dear. The women around her giggled. Adaeze bit her lip against the pain and continued serving. At the center of the celebration, Naoma sat on a decorated stool, her pregnant belly draped in fine cloth. She was being honored as the woman with the most children in Obi's household. Speech! Speech! The women chanted. Naoma stood gracefully, her hand resting on her belly. Thank you, my sisters. The gods have truly blessed me. Some women are chosen to be mothers, to carry the future of our people in their wombs. It is a sacred duty, and I don't take it lightly. Her eyes found Adaeze in the crowd. And I pray that even those who have been passed over by the gods, even the barren ones among us, will find peace in serving those of us who have been chosen. The crowd applauded. Several women turned to look at Adaeze with thinly veiled pity. Adaeze felt her chest tighten. The pot in her hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Adaeze, Mama Obi called. Bring more soup to Neoma's table. Adaeze approached on shaking legs. As she bent to pour the soup, Neoma shifted suddenly. The hot liquid splashed across Adaeze's arm and chest, scalding her skin. Adaeze gasped in pain, dropping the pot. It shattered on the ground, soup spreading everywhere. Oh my! Neoma exclaimed, her voice dripping with false concern. How clumsy! Are you hurt? Her eyes were laughing. The other women rushed over, but not to help Adaeze. They fussed over Neoma, making sure none of the soup had splashed on her precious belly. I'm fine, Neoma assured them. But poor Adaeze, always so careless. Maybe if she had children to care for, she'd be more careful with things. The women laughed, some nervously, others openly. Adaeze stood there, soup dripping from her clothes, her arm burning, tears streaming down her face. Clean this up, Mama Obi hissed. You're embarrassing us. That night, Adaeze sat in her hut, applying herbs to her burns. Her hands trembled as she worked, exhaustion and despair weighing down every movement. A knock on the door made her jump. Adaeze? Are you awake? Obi. Her heart leapt despite everything. He hadn't come to her hut in months. Maybe he'd heard about what happened at the festival. Maybe he'd come to comfort her. Come in, she said quickly, straightening her wrapper. Obi entered, but his face was cold. He didn't sit. He didn't move to embrace her. He just stood in the doorway like a stranger. I heard what happened today, he said. Obi, it was an accident. And Neoma is carrying my fourth child, Obi interrupted. She's doing her duty as a wife, as a woman. The words stung worse than the burns on her arm. And you, he continued, what are you doing? Making a spectacle of yourself? Dropping pots? Crying in front of the entire village? I didn't mean to. You never mean to. His voice rose. You never mean to embarrass me, but you do. Every single day. Your barrenness is a shame I have to carry. Do you know what the men say to me? They mock me, Adaeze. They say I'm cursed to have chosen you as my first wife. I'm sorry, Adaeze whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me children? Obi's voice was cold now, final. My mother is right. I was foolish to wait this long. Chidera is young, fertile. She'll give me sons. But I'm your wife too. I'm trying. Trying? Obi laughed bitterly. For 7 years you've been trying. Maybe the problem isn't the trying. Maybe the problem is you. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Maybe you are cursed, Adaeze. Maybe whatever dark thing you did in your past life, you're paying for it now. And maybe it's time you accepted that. He left without looking back. Adaeze collapsed onto her mat, her body shaking with silent sobs. She pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle the sound, not wanting to give Neneoma the satisfaction of hearing her break. But she was breaking. She had been breaking for 7 years, and tonight, something inside her finally shattered completely. The next morning, Mama Obi woke Adaeze before dawn. Get up. There's work to do. Adaeze dragged herself from her mat, every muscle aching, her heart even heavier than her body. Follow me, Mama Obi commanded. They walked to the far end of the compound where a small hut stood, freshly repaired, newly painted, beautiful. This will be Chidera's bridal hut, Mama Obi announced. You will clean it, decorate it, and make sure everything is perfect for her arrival. Adaeze stared at the hut. You want me to prepare another wife's home? You are the first wife. It's your responsibility. Mama Obi's voice was sharp. Or have you forgotten your place? For the next week, Adaeze worked on the bridal hut. She swept every corner, washed every surface, hung beautiful cloth on the walls. She arranged flowers by the door and placed new sleeping mats on the floor. With every decoration she placed, she felt another piece of herself die. The other women watched her work with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Poor Adaeze, one whispered, preparing her own replacement. She should have left years ago, another replied. I would never humiliate myself like this. But where would she go? Back to her family, who had given her to Obi with such hope. To the village, where everyone knew her as the Barren woman. To the forest, to die alone. She had nowhere to go. So she stayed, and she prepared the home of the woman who would take her place. On the night before Chidera's arrival, Mama Obi inspected the hut. Adequate, she said dismissively. Tomorrow you'll prepare the wedding feast. I want palm wine, jollof rice, pepper soup, fried plantains, and goat's meat. Spare no expense. This wedding needs to erase the embarrassment you've brought to this family. Yes, Mama. And Adaeze? Mama Obi's voice dropped to a whisper. After the wedding, you'll move to the old storage hut behind the compound. Chidera will need your current hut. It's closer to Obi's quarters. Adaeze felt her world tilt. Even her small space, her tiny corner of privacy, was being taken away. Do you understand? Yes, Mama. That night Adaeze sat in her hut, soon to be Chidera's hut, and looked around at the life she'd built here. The mat where she'd cried herself to sleep for 7 years. The small altar where she'd prayed desperately for a child. The corner where she'd hidden away from the world's cruelty. All of it would belong to someone else soon. She was being erased. Slowly, completely, as if she'd never existed at all. And no one cared. If you're watching this and you feel like the world is against you, if the waiting feels unbearable and people have turned their backs on you, drop a comment and let me know you're here. You are not alone. And if you believe that your blessing is on the way, no matter how long it takes, hit that subscribe button. Because Adaze's story is about to prove that your tears are not in vain. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. The wedding day arrived with cruel beauty. The sun shone brightly, birds sang in the trees, and the entire village gathered to celebrate. Everyone except Adaeze. She stood behind the cooking hut, stirring massive pots of rice and soup, her face blank with exhaustion. She'd been cooking since before dawn, and her hands were blistered from the heat. Through the trees she could see the celebration. Chidera looked radiant in her wedding wrapper, her young face glowing with hope and excitement. She didn't know yet that joy in this family was temporary, that being a wife here meant being in constant competition for scraps of affection. Or maybe she did know. Maybe she just thought she'd be different, that she'd be loved. Adaeze had thought the same thing once. The pepper soup needs more spice. Mama Obi appeared beside her, tasting from the pot. Fix it, and hurry. The guests are hungry. Adaeze added more. Pepper with shaking hands. Look at you, Mama Obi said suddenly, her voice almost sad. You were beautiful once. When Obi married you, I thought you'd give me many grandchildren. I thought you'd be the pride of this family. Adaeze said nothing, but the gods had other plans, I suppose. Or maybe, Mama Obi paused. Maybe you brought this on yourself? Maybe in your heart you don't truly want children. Some women are just unnatural that way. I want a child more than I want to breathe, Adaeze whispered. Then why hasn't it happened? Mama Obi's voice turned cold again. 7 years, Adaeze. 7 years is not bad luck. It's a curse. And curses don't break. They just consume. She walked away, leaving Adaeze alone with the bitter truth. As the sun set and the celebration grew louder, Adaeze finished her work. The guests were fed, the bride was dancing, the groom was laughing, and Adaeze was invisible. She slipped away from the compound while everyone was distracted by the festivities. No one noticed her leave. No one called her name. No one wondered where she'd gone. She walked through the darkening forest, her feet moving automatically toward the one place she'd been avoiding for years, the sacred river. It was forbidden to go there after dark. The elder sad spirits walked by the water at night, some benevolent, some dangerous. Women only went there during the day to pray or make offerings. But Adaeze wasn't afraid of spirits anymore. What could they do to her that life hadn't already done? The river appeared through the trees like a ribbon of silver in the moonlight. The water moved slowly, peacefully, as if the world's suffering couldn't touch it. Adaeze collapsed at the water's edge, finally allowing herself to fall apart. She screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw, until her voice broke, until the sound became nothing more than gasping sobs. Why? She cried out to the sky, to the gods, to anyone who might be listening. What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? The forest remained silent. I've been faithful. I've been kind. I've prayed every single day. I've endured their mockery, their cruelty, their... She couldn't finish. The words dissolved into tears. She looked at the water. It was deep here, deep enough. The thought came unbidden. It would be so easy to walk in, to let the water take her, to finally be free from the shame, the pain, the endless crushing weight of being unwanted. Would anyone even mourn her? Or would they just be relieved? I can't do this anymore, she whispered to the water. I can't. She stood on shaking legs, took one step toward the river. Child, why do you weep? Adaeze froze. The voice was weak, barely above a whisper, but it cut through her despair like a knife. She spun around. An old woman sat beneath a tree at the edge of the clearing. She was ancient, her face deeply lined, her body frail and trembling. She wore simple, tattered clothing and looked as if she hadn't eaten in days. Who are you? Adaeze asked. Just an old woman, she replied, her voice gentle. But I heard your cries. Such pain, such deep pain. What troubles you, child? Adaeze should have been cautious, should have been afraid, but she was too broken to care. Everything, she whispered. Everything troubles me. Come, the old woman said. Sit with me. Tell me your story. And for reasons Adaeze couldn't explain, she did. Adaeze sat beside the old woman and poured out her heart. She told her about the 7 years of barrenness, about Mama Obi's cruelty and Neoma's mockery, about the village's whispers and the market's rejection, about Obi's betrayal and Chidera's arrival. She told her about preparing the bridal hut, cooking the wedding feast, being slowly erased from her own life. She told her about the pain of waking up every day in a body that refused to do the one thing women were supposed to do. I thought if I was patient, if I was good, if I prayed hard enough, the gods would bless me, Adaeze said, tears streaming down her face. But they haven't. They've forgotten me. Or worse, they're punishing me for something I don't even remember doing. The old woman listened without interruption, her wise eyes never leaving Adaeze's face. When Adaeze finally fell silent, Exhausted from crying, the old woman reached out and took her hand. The gods have not forgotten you, she said softly. Then why? Adaeze's voice broke. Why am I suffering like this? Because your story is not over yet, child. The darkest hour comes just before dawn. There is no dawn for me, Adaeze whispered. Only more darkness. The old woman smiled, a strange, knowing smile. You think your suffering has been in vain, but suffering that shapes a kind heart is never wasted. Kind heart? Adaeze laughed bitterly. What good is a kind heart when everyone treats you like you're cursed? Everything, the old woman said simply. She reached into a tattered cloth and pulled out a small calabash. It was old, decorated with symbols Adaeze didn't recognize. I'm thirsty, the old woman said, but I'm too weak to fetch water from the river. Would you help me? Adaeze stared at her. Here she was, drowning in her own despair, and this old woman was asking for help. But even now, even at her lowest point, Adaeze couldn't ignore someone in need. She took the calabash without a word and walked to the river's edge. She filled it with cool water and brought it back to the old woman. The woman drank deeply, then smiled. Thank you, child. You have a kind heart indeed. What good does it do me? Adaeze asked again. More than you know, the old woman replied. Tell me, do you have any food? Adaeze reached into her wrapper. She'd saved a small piece of bread from the wedding feast, the only food she'd eaten all day. She looked at it, then at the old woman's frail form. With a sigh, she handed it over. The old woman ate slowly, savoring every bite. When she finished, she looked at Adaeze with eyes that suddenly seemed much younger, much sharper. You gave me water when you were drowning in your own tears, she said. You gave me food when your own stomach was empty. Why? Adaeze shrugged helplessly. Because you needed it more than I did. And that, the old woman said, is why you will be blessed. Before Adaeze could respond, the old woman's form began to shimmer in the moonlight. Her bent back straightened, her wrinkled face smoothed, her tattered clothing transformed into beautiful flowing robes. Adaeze gasped and fell backward. Who? What are you? I am one who watches, the woman said, her voice now strong and clear. I am one who tests, and you, Adaeze, have passed. Adaeze trembled before the transformed woman, her mind struggling to understand what she was seeing. Are you a goddess? I am a servant of the divine, the woman replied. I walk among mortals to find those whose hearts remain pure despite their suffering. And your heart, child, your heart has been tested by fire and has not turned to ash. I don't understand, Adaeze whispered. For 7 years you have endured cruelty. You could have become bitter. You could have become cruel yourself. Instead, you remained kind. You helped an old stranger when you yourself were drowning in despair. That is rare. That is precious. But why? Adaeze's voice broke. Why did I have to suffer so much? Because, the woman said gently, the blessing you're about to receive requires a vessel strong enough to hold it. And strength is only forged through fire. She reached into her robes and pulled out another calabash, this one glowing with an otherworldly light. This water comes from the source of life itself, she said. Drink it at dawn for 7 days. Tell no one, not your husband, not your mother-in-law, not even the wind. And no matter what happens during these 7 days, you must continue to show kindness, even to your enemies. And then? Adaeze's heart pounded. And then I'll have a child? And then, the woman said with a mysterious smile, you will have more than you ever imagined. But you must trust the process. You must have faith even when everything seems to be falling apart. She pressed the calabash into Adaeze's trembling hands. 7 days, child. 7 mornings at dawn. Can you do this? Adaeze clutched the calabash to her chest. Yes, yes, I can do this. Good. But remember, this is not just about receiving a blessing. This is about proving that you deserve it. The test is not over. In fact, it has only just begun. The woman's form began to fade, becoming translucent in the moonlight. Wait, Adaeze called out. What do I do if someone discovers the calabash? What if they try to stop me? Then you will know. the woman's voice echoed as she disappeared completely. "Whether your faith is strong enough to overcome fear." And then she was gone. Adaeze was alone by the river, holding a glowing calabash, wondering if she'd just imagined everything. But the calabash was real, heavy in her hands, warm, pulsing with the gentle light that seemed to match the rhythm of her heartbeat. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you." Adaeze returned to the compound in the dead of night. The wedding celebration had finally ended and everyone was asleep, drunk on palm wine and exhausted from dancing. She slipped into her hut. No, not a hut anymore. Adaeze's storage hut, the tiny dark space behind the compound where they kept old farming tools and broken pottery. This was her home now. She hid the calabash beneath her sleeping mat and lay down, her heart racing with a mixture of hope and terror. Could this be real? Could she actually be pregnant after 7 years? Or was this just another cruel trick, another test that would end in disappointment? She forced herself to sleep, but her dreams were restless, filled with images of crying babies and laughing spirits. Day 1. Adaeze woke before dawn and carefully removed the calabash from its hiding place. Her hands shook as she lifted it to her lips. The water tasted like nothing she'd ever experienced, sweet and bitter at the same time, cool and warm, earthly and divine. It filled her mouth and seemed to travel through her entire body, warming her from the inside out. She finished drinking and hid the calabash again, then went about her morning duties as if nothing had changed. But something had changed. She could feel it. Day 2, Mama Obi found Adaeze sweeping the compound and frowned. "You look different. Are you sick?" "No, Mama, I'm fine." Mama Obi studied her suspiciously. "Well, stop wasting time. The goats need feeding." Adaeze drank the sacred water again at dawn and felt the warmth spread through her body like sunlight breaking through clouds. 3 ties. This was the day everything almost fell apart. Adaeze had just finished her dawn ritual when Neoma burst into the storage hut without warning. "Adaeze, Mama Obi needs—" "What is that?" She was staring at the calabash in Adaeze's hands. Adaeze's heart stopped. It's nothing. Just water for my morning prayers." Neoma's eyes narrowed. "That's not a normal calabash. Where did you get it?" "I found it by the river." "Let me see it." "No." Adaeze pulled it back instinctively. Neoma's face darkened. "You're hiding something. What are you doing, Adaeze? Some kind of dark magic? Are you trying to curse me?" "I would never. Give me that calabash." They struggled briefly, but Adaeze was stronger from years of hard labor. She pushed Neoma away and clutched the calabash to her chest. "It's just water," Adaeze said firmly. "River water for prayers. That's all." Neoma backed toward the door, her face suspicious and afraid. "I'm telling Mama Obi about this. Whatever you're doing, it won't work. You're still barren. You're still cursed." She left, but Adaeze knew she wasn't safe anymore. The test had begun. Day 4 and 5. Mama Obi interrogated Adaeze about the calabash, but Adaeze stuck to her story. It was just river water for prayers. She even showed Mama Obi the calabash, though she'd hidden the glowing water in a different container. Mama Obi was suspicious but had no proof of wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Adaeze continued drinking the sacred water. Each dawn, with each sip, she felt stronger, more hopeful, more alive. Day 6, the announcement came at breakfast. "We're having a family gathering tomorrow," Mama Obi declared. "Chidera's family is visiting to celebrate the marriage. Adaeze, you'll cook for everyone. Tomorrow." The 7th day, the final day of the ritual. "Yes, Mama," Adaeze said quietly. That night, as she prepared for the final dawn, Adaeze prayed harder than she'd ever prayed in her life. "Please," she whispered, "let this work. Let this be real. I don't know if I can survive another disappointment." Day 7, Adaeze woke in the pre-dawn darkness, her hands trembling as she reached for the calabash. This was it, the last drink, the final moment of faith. She lifted the calabash to her lips and drank the remaining water. It was sweeter than before, warmer, almost alive. As the last drop touched her tongue, she felt a surge of energy unlike anything she'd experienced. It started in her belly and spread outward, filling every part of her body with warmth and light. She gasped, doubling over as the sensation intensified, and then she felt it. A flutter, deep in her womb, so faint she almost thought she'd imagined it. But it was there. Life, new life, growing inside her. "Oh," she breathed, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, thank you. Thank you." But the moment of joy was short-lived. The warmth in her belly suddenly turned to fire. The flutter became a storm. Adaeze's vision blurred, and the world tilted sideways. "No," she whispered. "No, not now, please." She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She collapsed onto her mat, her body convulsing, her mouth unable to form words. Through the haze of pain, she heard footsteps approaching. "Adaeze?" Mama Obi said to Adaeze. Nema's scream pierced the morning air. "Help! Someone help! The Barren woman is dead." Adaeze tried to speak, to tell them she wasn't dead, but her body wouldn't obey. Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. The last thing she heard before the world went black was Mama Obi's cold voice. "Finally, the cursed one is gone." But death was not the end. It was only the beginning. If this story touched your heart, if you've been waiting for your miracle and people have lost faith in you, share this video with anyone who has lost hope in childbearing. Your blessing is coming. Adaeze's miracle is in part 2, and trust me, what happens next will restore your faith. Don't forget to subscribe because you need to see how this ends. Your time is coming. See you in part 2.